In this video, i-discuss naman natin ang hyperbola. Hyperbola is a set of all points in the plane, the difference of whose distances from two fixed points is a positive constant. So this is our hyperbola. This opens to the right and to the left. And the other one, or the other hyperbola, opens upward and downward. So ano-ano nga ba ang parts ng hyperbola? Umpisahan natin sa center. Center is at HK. Or if our center is at the origin, the coordinates of the center is 0, 0. The center is the intersection of the transverse and the conjugate axis. The transverse axis is a line segment whose endpoints are the vertices. So ito yung ating transverse axis. So it passes through the center and whose endpoints are the vertices. Also, this is the intersection of the transverse and conjugate axis. So nasaan naman ang ating conjugate axis? The conjugate axis is perpendicular to our transverse axis and whose endpoints are the covertices. Okay? Also, the center is the intersection of the two asymptotes. So ito yung mga asymptotes natin. This one and this one. Next part, the two vertices. The two vertices where each curve makes its sharpest curve. So yung vertices natin, yun yung nga yung endpoints ng transverse axis natin. So yung distance from one vertex to another vertex, that is 2a. And the distance from the center going to one vertex, that is a. The next part is the covertex or covertices. Ang covertices naman, nabanggit natin kanina, yun ay ang endpoints ng ating conjugate axis. And the distance from one covertex to another covertex, that is 2b. And from center going to one covertex, the distance is b. The next part, the foci. Ang foci here and here. Distance from center is c. Okay, so from center going to one focus, the measure or the distance is c. So how are we going to find its distance? Using the formula c squared equals a squared plus b squared. The next part, the transverse axis. The transverse axis is a line segment whose endpoints are the vertices and intersects the conjugate axis perpendicularly. So ito yung ating transverse axis na na-discuss na rin natin kanina. Also, this is the conjugate axis. So ulitin natin, ang transverse axis is a line segment na ang endpoint ay yung vertices. Then, ang conjugate axis naman is a line segment na ang endpoints ay the covertices. Okay? The intersection of the transverse and the conjugate axis is our center. The last part is the asymptotes. So, as we all know, ang asymptote and a curve, so they are moving closer and closer but they will never meet. So in this hyperbola, the two asymptotes which are not part of the hyperbola but show where the curve would go if continued indefinitely in four directions. So here is our positive slope na asymptote and the negative slope asymptote. So let's have the standard equations. So isinama ko ulit yung figure natin kanina. So the first standard equation is x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equals 1 if the center of our hyperbola is at the origin. The second is y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared equals 1. So as we notice, nag-interchange yung x at y. And a and b still remain. Okay, nandun lang sila sa pwesto nila. The first term nandun ang A, the second term nandun ang B. Okay, then yung X at Y ang nagkabaliktad. Sa ellipse na na-discuss natin, ang nag-i-interchange sa kanila ay A at B. Yung X at Y ay hindi sila nagkakapalit. So here, ito yung clue. kung ano yung positive term sa kanilang dalawa, nandoon ang ating transverse axis. So in our first equation, dahil nandito yung x or positive yung x, ang transverse axis natin ay x-axis. So dun sa second, dahil positive yung y, ang transverse axis natin ay y-axis. So kapag ang transverse axis ay x-axis, our hyperbola opens to the right and to the left. Kapag naman ang transverse axis natin ay y-axis, our hyperbola opens upward and downward. Okay? So dito naman, kapag ang center ay wala sa origin, so magdadagdag ulit tayo ng h at k. So quantity x minus h squared over a squared minus quantity y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. So ang transverse axis nito ay x-axis kasi positive ang x natin. Then dito naman, quantity y minus k squared over a squared minus quantity x minus h squared over b squared equals 1. So in this case, our transverse axis is y-axis dahil ang positive term ay y. So we have here the equations of our asymptotes. If the center is at the origin, ito yung posible nating gamitin. So we have two. So mamaya ay ibibigay natin kung paano ba ginagamit ang equations of asymptotes at alin ba dito sa dalawa ang gagamitin natin. Okay? So we have y equals positive negative b over a x or y equals positive negative a over bx. Then kapag naman ang center ay wala sa origin, so ganun ulit, madadagdagan ng h at k. So quantity y minus k equals positive negative b over a times quantity x minus h, or quantity y minus k equals positive negative a over b times x or quantity x minus h. So mamaya sa mga examples natin, malalaman natin kung paano ba gagamitin or kukuhanin ang equations ng mga asymptotes natin. So let's have this equation. X squared over 4 minus y squared over 9 equals 1. So as we can see, our positive term is x. So ang transverse axis natin ay opens to the right and to the left. Or the transverse axis is the x-axis. So ito yung magiging hyperbola natin. So paano naman pag nagkabaliktad ang x at y? Yung y naman ang positive, yung x naman ang negative. So ganito yung magiging equation natin, and the graph will be like this. So let's have our example number 1. Determine the vertices, foci, equations of the asymptotes of the hyperbola given by the equation x squared over 4 minus y squared over 9 equals 1, and sketch the graph. So itong equation na to ay yung kaninang given natin sa last slide. Ngayon isosolve natin siya kung paano tayo nag-arrive doon sa graph natin. So for our solution, of course, our center is found at the origin kasi kita na natin doon sa standard equation pa lang. So we're going to solve first the a squared. So what is the value of a? So a is equal to square root of 4 and a is positive negative 2. So kung nasaan ang ating transverse axis, doon magkakaroon ng changes. So if our transverse axis is x-axis, so our vertices will be 2, 0 and negative 2, 0. Then our value of b, we have positive negative 3. So our co-vertices will be 0, 3 and 0, negative 3. Then let's find the distance of our foci. So we have c squared equals a squared, which is 4, plus b squared, which is 9. So we have c equals positive negative square root of 13. So ito yung magiging foci natin. So kung nasaan ang ating transverse axis, doon din magkakaroon ng changes ang ating foci. So square root of 13, 0. So nasa x coordinate siya. And negative 13, 0. So this is our graph. So in graphing, ganito yung una natin gagawin. So of course, the center. So center is at the origin. So palalakihan lang natin. So here. So center is our origin is our center. Then the vertices is 2, 0 and negative 2, 0. Ipa-plot muna natin sila. This is our 2, 0 and negative 2, 0. Then after that, our co-vertices is 0, 3 and 0, negative 3. Then from that, we're going to draw an auxiliary rectangle. So this is our auxiliary rectangle. So itong rectangle na to will be our guide to draw the line of our asymptote. So unahin natin yung asymptotes natin before we draw our hyperbola. So connected, opposite corners, and passing through the center, that is the first asymptote. Then opposite corners, passing through the center, that is the other asymptote. Then from the vertex, after nating i-drawing yung ating asymptotes, i-drawing na natin yung ating curves. So this curve going here. So they will never intersect. They are going closer and closer to each other, but they will never intersect. That is the idea of asymptote. Okay, then sa other side, here, here. Also, we are going to plot our foci. Ang foci is square root of 13, 0, and negative square root of 13, 0. So, kung idadecimal natin, makukuha natin yung exact value ng ating square root of 13, which is 3 point something. It will not go beyond 4 and 2. So, between 2 and 4. Or 3 and 4. Okay. So, sa other side, yun siya. Now, for the equations of our asymptotes, we're going to use B over A. B over A is the slope. B over A or A over B. So, bakit B over A yung gagamitin natin? Because from the center, we're going to move the rise over run, that is the slope. Ang rise natin ay B, di ba? So, ang B is 3. And ang run natin is 2 going to the right. So, that is B over A. Then, substitute the values. So, A over B or B over A, B is 3, A is 2. So, we have positive, negative, we have two slopes or two equations of our asymptotes. This line is or has the positive slope. This line. So, the equation of this asymptote is y equals 3 over 2x. Then, this one has the negative slope. That's why its equation is y equals negative 3 over 2x. Let's have our example number 2. The transverse axis of a hyperbola is 12 and the curve passes through the point 8, 14. Find its equation. So, for our solution, let us remember that the length of our transverse axis is 2a. Then, i-equate lang natin yung 12 doon sa 2a for us to be able to find the value of a. So, a is 6. Then, our given, another given is 0.814. So, our equation will be x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equals 1. So, since we have the value of a, we have the value of x and y, we will be able to find the value of our b to find our equation. So, let's substitute. So, by substitution, we have 8 squared over 6 squared minus 14 squared over b squared equals 1. Then, simplify. We have 64 over 36 minus 196 over b squared equals 1. So, i-isolate natin yung b. So, lumipat yung 64 over 36 sa kabila, naging minus. Then, yung 36 over 36 dito, that is the 1. Okay, because 36 over 36 is 1. So, why do we need to change to 36 over 36? Kasi pag sa fraction, di ba, we cannot subtract or add kapag dissimilar fraction sila. So, pinagtulad lang natin ng denominators. So, kung ano yung denominator ng 64 over 36, yun din yung magiging value ng ating 1. So 36 over 36. So we have negative 196 over b squared equals negative 28 over 36. So ginawa na lang nating positive kasi both sides naman are negative. So in the long run, going to the answer, it will become positive. So ang ginawa naman dito sa next step is nilowest term lang yung 28 over 36. They are both divisible by 4. So we have 196 divided by b squared equals 7 divided by 9. So this, we are going to do the cross multiplication. So we have 7b squared over 196 times 9 is 1,764. Then divide both sides by 7 and we have 252 as the value of our b squared. Okay, so hindi na natin kailangang i-extract yung roots ng 252 because isa-substitute na natin yung value ng b squared doon directly sa ating equation. So our equation will be x squared over 36. So where did we get 36? That is a squared. So our value of a is 6. So a squared is 36. Then our b squared is 252. Okay, so this is our standard equation. So paano natin siya makikita sa graph? So ito yung hyperbola natin. Ang transverse axis niya ay x-axis. At ito ay makikita natin na point. That is 814. It passes through our hyperbola. Okay? Also, makikita natin dito, hyperbola or the transverse axis of our hyperbola is 12. So, from the center going to one of the vertices, that is 6, and opposite, that is 6. So, that is 12. Next example. Determine the center, vertices, foci, equations of the asymptotes of the hyperbola given by quantity y plus 2 squared minus 16 over quantity x minus 3 squared over 25 equals 1, and sketch the graph. So for our solution, the center, ang una natin kukunin yung center. That is 3, negative 2. Then, find the value of a. A squared is equal to 16, therefore a is positive negative 4. So dito sa equation pa lang malalaman na natin kung nasa ng ating transverse axis. Dahil y or y term yung positive, that will be our transverse axis, the y axis. So the vertices will be 3, negative 2 plus 4 and 3, negative 4 minus 4. So nakita nyo, ang changes natin ay nasa y coordinate dahil ang transverse axis natin ay nasa y axis. So our vertices will be, so simplify lang natin after mag-add at mag-subtract. So we have 3, 2 and 3, negative 6. The next variable that we're going to get the value is b. So b squared is equal to 25. B is equal to positive negative 5. So yung b naman natin will be the conjugate axis and our conjugate axis ay nasa x-axis. That's why our covertices will be 3 plus 5, negative 2 and 3 minus 5, negative 2. So our covertices will be 8, negative 2 and negative 2, negative 2. Then for our foci, we will have c squared equals 16, that is a squared plus b squared is 25. So c is equal to square root of the quantity 16 plus 25 and c will be positive negative square root of 41. So our foci or the coordinates of our foci will be 3, negative 2 plus square root of 41 and 3, negative 2 minus square root of 41. So let's proceed to another computation. So ito, nakuha na natin ang center, coordinates of the vertices, coordinates of the covertices, and the foci. So i-graph natin sila. Ito yung magiging graph niyan. Unahin natin ang center. That is, from the origin, 1, 2, 3, and negative 2. 1, 2. So this is our origin. Then followed by our vertices, that is 3, 2. So here's 3, 2, and 3, negative 6. Here is 3, negative 6. Then ang sunod nating ipa-plot ay yung co-vertices naman. That is 8, negative 2, and negative 2, negative 2. Then after plotting the vertices and the co-vertices, magdo-drawing tayo ng auxiliary rectangle. So for us to be able to have our asymptotes. So after drawing the auxiliary rectangle, we will have our first asymptote here. So passing through the opposite corner and the center, and the other one passing through the opposite corner and the center. So we have two lines. Then we sketch the hyperbola from the vertex. So upward muna. Unahin natin yung upward. So sketch natin. So done. Yan. So they will get closer and closer but they will never meet. So sa pababa naman. Then after sketching, i-plot na din natin ang ating foci. Ang foci natin, pag ginawa nating decimal, that will be 3, 4.4. And sa baba naman, that is 3, negative 8.4. So hindi pa tayo tapos kasi in our problem, determine the center, the vertices, the foci. So nakuha na natin yung lahat. Now, we are going to find the equations of the asymptotes. So let's have this problem. So for the equation of the asymptotes, ang gagamitin natin na equation will be quantity y minus k equals positive negative. So what will be? Is it a over b or b over a? So from our center, then going rise, what is that? A or b? That is a. Then ang run natin is b. So we will have quantity y minus k equals positive negative a over b times quantity x minus h. So may value naman tayo ng ating k, h, a, and b. Isa-substitute na lang natin, then we're going to find the equations of the asymptotes in terms of y. So we have this substitution, y minus negative 2 equals positive negative 4 over 5 times quantity x minus 3. Then, cross-multiply lang. Ni-multiply natin yung 5 dun sa kabilang term para mawala yung fractions natin. Then, quantity y plus 2, yun yung galing sa taas. Then, multiply natin sa 5. Minus positive negative 4 times quantity x minus 3. Then, dinistribute natin yung 5 dun sa y plus 2. We have 5y plus 10 equals positive negative 4 times quantity x minus 3. Then, i-isolate natin yung y. So, nilipat natin yung 10 sa kabila, naging negative 10. Then, i-divide natin all terms by 5 para mawala yung 5 doon sa katabi ng y natin. So, we have y equals positive negative 4 times quantity x minus 3 over 5 minus 2. So, saan ang galing yung 2? Because all terms are divided by 5, lahat sila, including 10. So, 10 divided by 5 is 2. Then, paghiwalayin natin the positive and the negative slope of our asymptotes. For the positive slope, we have y equals, so if 4 is positive, that will be 4x, then 4 times negative 3 is negative 12 over 5 minus 2. Then, for the negative slope of the asymptote, we have y equals, so this is negative 4 na. Negative 4 times x is negative 4. Then negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. All over 5 minus 2. So in the graph, i-label lang natin yung ating equations of the asymptote. Here is the positive slope. This line has the positive slope. And the other one is this line. This line has the negative slope. Next example. Transform the equation of the hyperbola negative 4x squared plus 9y squared plus 24x minus 18y minus 63 equals 0 from general to standard form. So let's have the given. So from the given negative 4x squared plus 9y squared plus 24x minus 18y minus 63 equals 0, ang susunod natin gagawin dyan, or the first step, is to arrange or regroup. So, sa unang term, dapat yun yung positive. Okay? So, alin kaya ang positive sa x squared at y squared? So, the y squared or 9y squared. Yun yung nasa una natin. Because 9 or y will be our transverse axis. So, we have 9y squared minus 18y. So, i-arrange na natin sila. Then, negative or minus 4x squared plus 24x equals 63. So, yung 63 natin, lumipat sa kabila. So, naging positive siya. Then, completing this square. So, sa completing this square, di ba, we cannot have a other than the value of 1. So, nag-GCF tayo, nilabas natin yung 9 because 9 times 9y 9 times y squared equals 9y squared and 9 times 2 is 18. So, sa kabilang group, ganun din. 4 times x squared is 4x squared. Then, negative 4 times negative 6 is positive 24. So, as you can see, negative ang ating 4. Then, blank plus 63. Then, kagaya nung nauna natin na transforming doon sa ellipse, idadagdag natin dito yung ating GCF. Then, imumultiply sa kung ano yung makukuha nating value ng C. Then, here naman, sa last term, dahil minus 4 or negative 4 yung ating naging GCF, negative yung dito or minus. Then, let's fill in the blanks. This will be 1 because 2 divided by 2 is 1. Then, pag in-square natin siya, that is 1. Sa kabila naman, 9. Because if we're going to divide 6 by 2, that is 3. Pag in-square natin yon, that is 9. Then, kompletuhin din natin sa kabila. So, we have 9 times 1. So, here. Then, 4 times 9. Here. Then, simplify. We have 9 times quantity y minus 1 squared minus 4 times quantity x minus 3 squared equals, so 9 times 1 is 9, then 4 times 9 is 36. So, we have 63 plus 9 minus 36. Then, simplify ulit natin yung nasa right side. So, we have 9 times quantity y minus 1 squared minus 4 times quantity x minus 3 squared equals 36. Then, dapat kailangan 1 lang yung nasa right side ng equation. That's why we're going to divide all terms by 36. So, we have here 9 times quantity y minus 1 squared over 36 minus 4 times quantity x minus 3 squared over 36 equals 36 over 36. So, in this case, ang gagawin na lang natin ay ilo-lowest term natin. So, our standard equation will be quantity y minus 1 squared over 4 minus quantity x minus 3 squared over 9 equals 1.